Pursuant to Section 84-1411 of the Nebraska statute, notice of this meeting was given on January 5th, 2018. The meeting will convene at 6:05 p.m., and visitors may obtain a request to be heard form from staff for any presentation they may have for the meeting. In accordance with policy, the request to be heard forms must be submitted to the secretary within the first 5 minutes of the board meeting in order to be heard at this meeting. Agenda items are subject to reordering at the discretion of the board president, so please attend the entire meeting to ensure you're able to hear any discussion. Pursuant to Section 84-1411 of the Nebraska statutes, the next meeting of the Board of Education of Douglas County School District 0001 will be held on Monday, January 22nd, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. in the board meeting room of the Teacher Administrative Center, 3215 Cummings Street. The agenda will be kept current and available for public inspection in the office of the Secretary of the Board of Education at the Administrative Building during regular working hours. Pursuant to Section 84-1412 of the Nebraska statutes, the public is hereby informed that a current copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted in the board meeting room on the north wall. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Vice President Snow will now lead us in the OPS vision and mission statement.
I will begin with the vision: every student, every day, prepared for success, and the mission: Omaha Public Schools prepares all students to excel in college, career, and life.
Roll call, please, Mr. Ray.
Cassidy,
Here.
Dotting,
Present.
Hallman,
Present.
America,
Present.
Perlman,
Here.
Ryan,
Present.
Scanlon, Snow.
Here.
7 present.
And Mr. Scanlon let me know that he would be about 15 minutes or so late since we were starting early. I would entertain a motion to excuse his absence until he arrives.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Snow and a second by Mrs. Gotting to excuse Mr. Scanlon. Roll call, please, Mr. Ray.
Ryan,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Cassidy,
Aye.
Dotting,
Aye.
Hallman,
Aye.
America,
Aye.
Perlman.
Aye.
7-0.
Motion carries. We will move on to our hashtag OPS Proud Spotlight and Mrs. Monique Farmer.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Evans. Tonight, our OPS Proud Spotlight is on Benson High School robotics teams. Congratulations to the Benson robotics team, Legion of Doom. They won the robotics competition in Elkhorn this past November. The win has qualified the team for state regional championships in the U.S. Open this upcoming April. Team members include Isaac Beacom, Sherla Lee, Carr, and Kyle Garner. The students also competed in the Omaha North Open, which took place this past December. The team of Isaac, Sher, and Lee won the tournament, and also they won the Skills Challenge Award. We salute Benson Bunnies for their achievements, and we also recognize Benson High School Principal, Mr. Tom Wagner. At this time, I would like to welcome the team's coach, Mr. Ryan Troxel, to the podium, as well as Mr. Tom Wagner, Principal of Benson High School.
Tom's got a big speech prepared for it. No. Just want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to come. It's a great thing. A lot of support from OPS for our robotics program. Jim Mussel, he's my supervisor. Great guy. Everything robotics comes from him, Coach. And also Tom Wagner. Our guys, they're there. We were there 3 days over break. I don't know, I didn't see many other kids coming up for 3 days to work on their schoolwork, but they were there working on the robots, which, as a coach, teacher, that's pretty nice. I'll introduce him. Kyle Gardner, come on up. Kyle's been with me 4 years. He's a senior. He's our programmer. Sharon Law, he's been with me 4 years. He's kind of our utility guy. He's our scout. He'll talk to everyone. He'll market himself. When we were over in China, he was a good asset for us. He doesn't speak Chinese, but they are all coming to talk to us and stuff, and he was just a great PR guy. He's also fundamental on there. Isaac Beacom, he's a junior this year. We've been together 3 years this year, and then he was also with me at Morton when I was there another 2 years. He's our lead builder, and we're right now we've won 3 out of the 4 tournaments we've been in. We'll go to this weekend. We host Robocalypse. 120 robotics teams will be at Benson. We will try to repeat. If you guys get a chance, come check it out on Saturday. A lot of schools from around the not just Omaha, not just Lincoln, but the whole state will be there. So it's pretty exciting. I think they'll give you a little demo of this year's game, and they're pretty quiet because they've been working since about 7 this morning. So. Every year you got a different task to do, and it's always changes, which is nice, which I like, because this year they have to pick up
and see everyone smiling as they're preparing for the students. The students will be here a little later. They're not here today, but our staff was excited, and the schools are just beautiful. So if you have a chance to go see those two new schools, please do. I also wanted to give a special shout out to Norris Middle School and Mars Middle Schools. They were successful in a Verizon grant that's going to provide each school with, I believe it's iPad tech devices for each student as well as each staff person, and also providing them professional development. I want to give a special thank you to Mr. Rob Dixon, who wrote the grant with his staff and the staff of the two schools. So I've talked to the principals of both schools, and they are beyond excited. I know the kids are excited, and they are as well. A couple of other updates. This time of year, I just wanted the public to know that we've already started our weather meetings, and we're all watching Thursday's weather. So I know several of you have emailed me already with your thoughts about the weather, and I appreciate having the helpers. So thank you for that. We're working hard on it, and we'll be watching that very closely as we move towards that time of the year. I also wanted to do a couple other updates. We are having our first Budget Advisory Committee meeting on January 18th, and thank you to the board for putting together several community members. I know we're still waiting on a couple of those individuals, but again, that Budget Advisory Committee will be responsible for recommending to the school board a cut of approximately $15.8 million to meet our OSERS ARC, which is an annual required contribution for our pension fund. So that's what that Budget Advisory Committee will be recommending to our school board. I also wanted to mention to the board that we are working really diligently on the sixth grade transition to Beveridge. As you know, that construction is now complete, and we'll be transitioning sixth grades there. We did learn quite a bit a year and a half ago and didn't have as smooth of a transition as we would have liked, but we feel very confident that it'll be smooth at Beveridge, and certainly this year we've not had any of the bumps that we had in the previous year. So we're making progress on all of those pieces, and just wanted you to be aware that we'll be coming back to you with more updates as the work continues on. Thank you, Madam President.
And just to reiterate, you make the decision about snow days, not the Board of Education.
Yes, Madam President.
Okay. I think we all get questions about that all the time, so. We will move on to our board member reports. Are there any board members that have updates? Mr. Snow.
Thank you, Madam President. Last year, in December 21st, we had our Omaha Public Schools Foundation meeting, and I just wanted to give a shout out to the foundation and their board members. This month, the foundation will be awarding $100,000 to OPS classroom teachers for innovation grants, as well as community members. These are small grants for their classroom projects, so a quick shout out to the foundation for that, and congratulations to the teachers and the community members that received those grant funds. Also, again, the Omaha Public Schools Foundation has been ranked top 10 out of K-12 foundations in the nation for a fourth year in a row, and that is tremendous when you compare us to urban school districts across the nation. So, congratulations.
Mrs. Godding.
Well, I just want to give a shout out to all the teams who played in the holiday basketball tournament last week. I was able to attend the Bryan Central game and then the Burke Central game as well. And I think it's pretty impressive that two OPS schools, and a lot of other people did too that were there, were the ones playing in the championship game, and that we took first and second. So congratulations to those schools and for the great way they represented OPS while they were there.
Anyone else? I just did want to quickly mention during my report, because there was a article in the World Herald yesterday giving an update about the superintendent search. And since we are doing board elections tonight, just to remind everyone that, in the public, that when we restarted the search, everyone on the board agreed to a set of, I guess you would call them guiding principles regarding the superintendent search committee, that regardless of changes in board membership, regardless of board officer elections, the board member serving on that committee and the person chairing that committee, which is Mr. Snow, would stay the same. Because I have had a couple people ask, well, since you reset committees sometime, are you going to change that committee up again? Is there going to be a different person chairing it? And the answer to that is no. We all agreed that that committee will stay the same members that it is right now, the same person chairing it. So just wanted to share that publicly since I've had a few people ask me about it. Next up on our agenda is public comment. almost said Mr. Ray, I don't have any forms. We have 7 speakers who have submitted request to speak forms. The board has adopted policy 8346, which provides public comment for a period of 1 hour. That same policy limits individual speakers to a maximum of 5 minutes, and we ask that you please respect that time limit. Mr. Ray will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining and when you have 30 seconds remaining. We ask to the extent that you are able, you keep your comments brief so that we can hear from as many people as possible. And if you are in need of an interpreter, please let Mr. Ray know and one will be provided for you. We understand people have strong feelings about what they come to speak about, and so we ask that you respect the opinions of everyone who speaks and refrain from applause or other outbursts during presentations. If the subject of your public comment is related to a particular student or staff member, we do ask that you not mention that student or staff member by name and provide that information to Mr. Ray so he can look into those specifics for you. If you do have a written copy of your commentary you would like the board to have, please also provide that to Mr. Ray and he will pass it along to us. And as a reminder, we do ask that you please spell your name and state your address before you begin your public comment. It is now 6:27 p.m. and our first speaker is Jonathan Chapman.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Chapman, JONATHANCHAPMAN, and my address is 5507 Jane Street, 68104. President Merica, Vice President Snow, and board members, good evening. My favorite memory from this winter break was sitting down with my children to complete a 48-piece Spider-Man puzzle. With a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 8-month-old, I am sure that you can imagine what an adventure that was. In their enthusiasm, they would grab whatever pieces they could find and just do whatever they could to try to make them fit. This, of course, only led to frustration because experience tells us that when completing a puzzle, you have to find the right pieces for the right place. Pieces may have a lot of similarities, they may look the same, they may have similar shapes, but for the puzzle to be completed, you have to find the right puzzle piece for the right puzzle place. Tonight, you all are tasked with finding the right piece for the right place to complete your team. It is my hope that you will take a lesson from a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 8-month-old, and not just grab at whatever pieces may be available and try to make them fit. But I hope that you will intentionally and purposefully seek to find the right puzzle piece for this puzzle place. In my humble opinion, and I'm no doctor, no scholar, no attorney, no CPA, as a matter of fact, you didn't even know I existed 90 seconds ago. But as a parent of 3 wonderfully intelligent children with limitless potential and great personality that they get from their mother, who will have a vested interest in the success of Omaha Public Schools for at least the next 18 years, there is, in my opinion, no piece better shaped to fit your puzzle than Ricky Smith. Mr. Smith has committed his life to the improvement of opportunities and education for our young people. He has an amazing track record of investment in our children and our schools. And at the time when students' preparation for college is a major concern for the district, it would seem you've been given a layup of sorts with the opportunity to add a college recruiter to the team with the knowledge and the resources to improve the plan. He is one of the most insightful individuals that I've ever met in terms of being able to assess problems and develop team-oriented solutions to overcome them. And his background in athletics and coaching makes him one of the best team members that you will ever find. He understands the value of unity in the pursuit of goals and the necessity of everyone doing their job to win the game. My respect for him grew exponentially during the 2016 race for the very seat that he pursues tonight, when he made every effort to attend every single candidate community forum that he was invited to ensure that my fellow citizens of Subdistrict 1 would get the information that they needed to be informed voters. The one time that he was unable to attend a community forum, he sent a qualified representative that was able to effectively communicate his vision for our students and field questions from community stakeholders. This intentionality in availing himself to the community would be a great asset during a time where community faith in the Omaha Public School Board of Education is waning. Ricky Smith understands, as you each do according to your personal biographical sketches on the OPS website, that the supreme need for collaboration between the board, administration, the parents, students, community leaders, and especially teachers is necessary if we're going to fulfill the mission of preparing all students to excel in college, career, and life. And honestly, if the teachers, the ones who are in the trenches every day, think that he's the best piece to fit the puzzle, then is there really any debate? We already disrespect our teachers with their inadequate compensation, unrealistic expectations, lack of support, and limited resources. Please don't disrespect them further and ignore their voice by disregarding their recommendation tonight. Lastly, if nothing else that I've said helps you to solidify your support for Ricky Smith, then I give you probably the single best reason in all human history to select him for the seat. Today is his birthday, and that would be one heck of a birthday present. My name is Jonathan Chapman, and I approve this message.
All right, thank you. Our second speaker is Cameron Gales.
Cameron Gales, Cameron, 13063 Taylor Circle. Superintendent Evans, President America, and Vice President Stowe. I should have went first. That's going to be a very, very tough speech to follow. I'm going to take a different approach. I'm here also to support Mr. Smith. A few years back, we all remember LB 800. As a city, we were faced, as parents, we were faced, and as a district, you guys were faced with this truancy issue. At this point in life, me and Mr. Smith were at the Urban League, and we were tasked with coming up with a program to help combat this problem. We were at Northwest High School. Me and Mr. Smith were sitting around talking about how are we going to reach these kids? How are we going to support the staff of Northwest and the district? And Mr. Smith said, we're going to be there. We're going to be there every day in that school. We're going to be that support. We're going to coach. We're going to stand in that hallway, and we're going to be there for them. We're going to teach them how to tie ties. We're going to do the little things. We're going to be that support. At that point, my youngest was only 3 years old. That taught me so much, not just how to be a person in the school, but it taught me how to be that support for my own children. It's the little things. Out of those 30 kids, we graduated 15 of them. There were kids out of that group that while we were there, they had relatives that were murdered, that said that if we weren't there, we might have been murdered as well. Those are things that you don't come across every day. Those are things that Mr. Smith say are the intangibles. We were coaching at Northwest. We coached a freshman team. Northwest, didn't have a very good football team. Our freshmen, we went undefeated. We went undefeated because Coach Smith, as the offense coordinator, would say things to our guys. Our deepest fears are not that we're inadequate, is that we're powerful beyond measure. Don't be afraid to be powerful. Don't be afraid to be great. We told our kids that every day. We played Creighton Prep, nothing against Creighton Prep. They marched out 100 kids. Coach Smith will say, only a certain amount of them can be on the field. The rest of them are just cheerleaders. These are things that he embodied, those motivational quotes that get you through the day. That's just one facet of who Mr. Smith is. And I have to be really fast because it's just endless stories that I could tell you about him, pages and pages of things testimonies of him. As a leader, he leads by example. Every staff member he's ever been around, he's a coach to staff. As a grown man, he's told me, don't be like me, be better. Mr. Marshall that works for him, he's doing great things. I've gone on to do decent things. It's time for him to go on and lead by example. Be a team member to you guys. I wrote things, but now as I'm standing here, it's coming out the best way I can give it to you. And that's to be real with you. He's going to be real with you. On his birthday, I agree. It's nothing better we could give him than an opportunity to be on your team and to help you all lead by example. For a year, my kids were in private school because I had lost faith and hope in our district. Ricky ran for a board seat. Even though he lost, conversations, he said, we're going to restore your faith. We're going to get your kids back on track. My kids are back in Fullerton, back in Buffett. I have a son that'll be in Fullerton next year. That's because I have faith in Ricky, and I have faith in you guys that are behind this table. So with that, I'm going to end with... Okay, 1 minute. I'll end with this. Don't be afraid of being great. Don't be afraid of adding somebody who's going to take what you have and elevate it. And it's not by taking what you have and doing his own thing with it. It's by taking what you have and helping you build upon it. He's an augment,
30 seconds.
not an addition. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Quentin Rogers.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Quentin Rogers, Quentin, Rogers, Rogers. My address is 3823 Franklin Street, zip code 68111. I'm coming tonight to speak on behalf and in support of Mr. Ricky Smith for the vacant school board seat. I've known Ricky for probably just under 2 years now, and in that short time that I've known him, he has made a tremendous impact on me and my impression of Omaha. Having been being a transplant from the East Coast in Virginia, coming here to Omaha, one of the very first individuals that I met was Ricky Smith, and I was extremely impressed with his dedication and his commitment to OPS's kids and to kids all across Omaha that he's connected with, from his interaction with individuals in the school system, coaching, and in the community. Also having worked with him on a few special projects on a few occasions over the past couple of years, I've always been nothing but impressed. He loves our kids. He loves to challenge them. He loves to stretch them, but he also loves to have fun with them as well, and to show them the kinds of possibilities that are before them and that are available to them. I've seen him speak to our children, and I've been very impressed and very proud to sit and watch him speak and encourage the children, and all of them always have tremendous feedback. And so I think, if for no other reason, because our kids like him, and as was echoed earlier by Mr. Chapman, because the teachers think that he is the one that would best serve not only the kids, but also serve you all as a team member. I put my support behind Ricky Smith, and I think that he would be an excellent addition to you all's team. And so I hope that you all take into consideration not just what I say tonight, but what others will come behind me and say, and what others have said before me as well, in regards to his credentials, his track record, as well as his character and his reputation, that you would consider him to be someone who will be an apt, capable, and valid team member for you all to continue to not only serve OPS students and the children, but also just to continue to serve the Omaha community as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Damian Foster.
Hello, I'm Damian Foster, D-A-M-I-E-N, Foster, F-O-S-T-E-R, address 15212 Benny Street, and that's in Omaha. I am also here to speak on behalf of Ricky, and I guess the first thing I would say is, just listening to everyone else talk, I forgot that Ricky even coached kids. But that's because he's done so much other stuff with the kids. And my kids have played against his football team when he coached the Omaha Warriors. And I remember they were definitely the best team we ever played, and I know it's because of the leadership that Ricky has. I've actually known Ricky since 1996 when I arrived on the campus of Midland Lutheran College in Fremont. I was an Army brat, so I'd been all over, but I will say Fremont was definitely something different for me. But I know when I met Ricky, He was the president of the fraternity that I eventually ended up pledging. And what I remember most about Ricky was the fact that he was always mentoring, always looking out for the kids that were, no matter where they were from, East Coast, me from Wisconsin. He was always looking out and mentoring the kids. And I just remember that. Even, you get an 18-year-old off to college by themselves and maybe they don't make the best decisions, but Ricky was always there to make sure everyone was staying on track. And that's what he did with the fraternity and other organizations he started while at Midland. I remember Ricky's time at Urban League, doing what he's doing now, helping the kids, what he does at UNO right now. I had a son that graduated a couple years ago from Burke, and even though, between his mom and I, we kept him on track and we made sure all his college stuff was done, Ricky was always sending me emails, text messages, make sure you look into this, do this date is coming up, this deadline. And I appreciated that, even though Ricky knew that we were making sure he was on track. He wanted to go that extra step just to make sure that my son could do the best that he can. And he graduated from Burke. He was a 4.5 student, whatever the top is. He was up there pretty good. But Ricky always made sure that he called us to make sure that my son was doing the best that he can and anything that he could do to help. So that is all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Gina Miller.
Good evening. Did everybody do this? Gina Miller, 4511 North 167th Street, Omaha, Nebraska. Happy New Year. Big night. Hope you're all refreshed and ready to go. I am here to discuss the board opening. It's the Ricky Smith Show tonight. I have to tell you that I am amazed every day at all the smart, passionate, caring individuals who step up every day to do what is right for kids in this district. Parents, teachers, staff, administration, and board members. I appreciate the dedicated individuals who are interested in stepping up to help lead the district as volunteer board members. These positions are critical for the future of OPS. I'd like to take this opportunity again to thank Yolanda Williams for her years of service to the district, and I would like to thank all who applied for the opportunity to represent this sub-district at a critical time in this district's history. I am fortunate to be involved in many activities and organization and advocate across the entire district. I know both Reverend Williams and Mr. Smith. They both are very engaged in OPS issues, this particular sub-district, and they both have boots on the ground. I have not had the pleasure to meet Mr. Solomon. I am here this evening in support of Mr. Smith because of his diverse background. Ricky, as many of you have already heard, is a UNO senior admissions representative. He knows what is needed to get our kids to the next level, whether it be job, career, tech, or college. He knows where the gaps are. Our biggest issue in this district, everybody can name 1,000 if you want to. Our biggest issue in this district is our achievement gap. It is our attention to our Black and brown students. And this guy knows what it takes to motivate, to get these kids to the next level, and he would be a valuable asset to this board. He has diversity and community outreach roles. He has cultural competency roles. He has coaching experience in our schools. He has extensive experience mentoring and motivating kids towards college and or career. He has multiple community leadership roles. He is an OPS grad. He has multiple degrees. He is an active and engaged OPS parent and children who are currently attending OPS schools, which I think is a critical asset to a board member and something that we could use more of on the board. His passion is for a strong, public, united, successful, high-achieving district for all of our kids. You will be well served with him at the board table. This will be the third appointment that this board will have made on this board table, non-elected. I beg you to listen to the community. I beg you to be thoughtful. I beg you to look at these individuals and their motivations and what would be best for this district and for the board as a total. Please take into account the community support you see here tonight, and please consider Ricky Smith for this open board commitment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Terrell McKinney.
How y'all doing tonight? My name's Terrell McKinney, Terrell McKinney. I live at 4948 Spartan Street. Like many others tonight, I'm offering my support for Ricky Smith. If anyone else is qualified for his vacant spot, it is him. I believe if the board and the OPS administration is committed to our kids and reversing any of the negatives over the past year, then this should be a no-brainer. He may not have won the election, but along the way he won the hearts of many. But he has also put in the necessary groundwork to be an added asset to the OPS school board. Like Ricky, I hope tonight that you guys put the kids first. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And our final speaker tonight is Shoshan Lynn Cook.
Good evening, Madam President, Vice President Snow, Superintendent Evans, board members. My name is Shoshan Lynn Cook. It's SHOSHANNLYNCOOK. My address is 5024 Nebraska Avenue in Omaha, Nebraska, 68104. I'm a proud third grade educator at Belvedere Elementary School. And I would like to recommend Ricky Smith for the vacant seat on the OPS Board of Education. Ricky has always dedicated himself to the youth of the city. And as others have mentioned before me, after his father became ill, Ricky took over the Little League organization that his father had founded. In this role, Ricky coached football, basketball, track and field. He held mandatory tutoring and social enhancement sessions, and he also oversaw cheerleading. The participants of the program had to attend the mandatory tutoring, which was done on a weekly basis, and the social enhancement sessions in order to participate in that week's game, which shows you how important education. And he would remind the children, you are a student first and athlete second. You're a student athlete. Ricky also started his own summer program, which was the Urban League University. That program was designed to assist at-risk youth recover credits needed for graduation. Ricky is a strong, reliable team player. He communicates with confidence. He does more than what is asked or required. He adapts quickly and easily, and his commitment is genuine. Ricky can definitely be counted on. He is consistent with his quality of work. He has an amazing work ethic. In all of the endeavors that Ricky has taken on, he is the strong backbone required for success. In difficult situations, he always ventures on with a strong resolve and persistence because he is committed to the task, and failure on his watch is not an option. Ricky has volunteered in my third grade classroom, and I need to tell you that my 21 children, you say they're my students, but those are my children. And I don't just bring anyone into my classroom, but I know Ricky, and I know his history, and I know that he's genuinely for the well-being of our children. And I talked to him because a lot of my children come from single-parent homes, and they don't see young men in a positive role. Most of the children that I have had in my classroom this year, the males, see for their role models, they're gentlemen that wear their pants down below their buttocks. The reek of marijuana when they come to school to pick them up. Yep, this happens every day. And so I asked Ricky to come and read. Whatever you felt like you wanted to do, then you could do that. And he has been amazing. I'm so thankful because my children matter to me, and I want them to know that the fate of their parents doesn't have to be their fate, and education is the key. Ricky feels the same way. I talked to my children and I asked them, I said, tell me, describe Mr. Smith to me. What words would you use to describe him? And the words that were used from my children, these are third graders, that he's honest, he's loving, he's understanding, he's caring, he's objective, meaning they said he listens to both sides of the story. Like when there was a fight or a disagreement in the classroom, he would listen to both sides of the story. He's assertive, flexible, professional, huggable because he gave hugs, a good listener, a good role model, mentor, productive, creative, encouraging, fair, successful, entertaining, energetic, enthusiastic, and loyal. So I stand before you now and tell you that Ricky Smith would be an asset to my school board. Thank you.
Came for public comment tonight. We will move on in our agenda. Next up, we do have our consent agenda for the evening, and I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda before us.
So move.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Snow and a second by Ms. Ryan. Are there any abstentions?
I've been having computer problems, so I haven't gotten a chance to look over the consent agenda, so I will abstain from the entire agenda.
No problem. And I will be abstaining from item I-5, which is Claims Report C, due to my employment at UNO, even though I do not receive any financial benefit from the payment of this bill. Anyone else? Okay, so Mr. Scanlon will be abstaining from the full consent agenda, and I will be abstaining from item I-5. Roll call, please, Mr. Ray.
Snow.
Aye.
Cassidy.
Aye.
Gadding.
Aye.
Holman.
Aye.
America.
Aye.
Perlman.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Scanlon.
Abstain.
7 ayes, 1 abstention.
All right, motion carries. We will move on to our, sorry, my computer's resetting. Our action item of the night, which is the board vacancy interviews for Sub-District 1.
Before we do, and I apologize for interrupting, I would make a motion to advance item number, letter M on the agenda to the first action item.
Unless there is a second, I will not make that movement because traditionally we have done that last due to the fact that the current officer team built the agenda and knows what to expect to run the meeting. And that's why we've traditionally done elections at the end of the meeting that those officers have set the agenda for.
I understand, but we've also had the past practice of not immediately seating a appointed board member and then have them then immediately vote on action for which they had not been seated and had a full opportunity to prepare for.
We have actually in the past sat a new board member at that exact meeting. We sat Mr. Vargas
Correct.
at the meeting when we filled his vacancy. And I said, if you want to make a motion, if anyone would like to second that, then as a board we can discuss that. Moving item M.
Correct. I make that motion.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, seeing none, we will move forward with item J1A then, which is the board vacancy interview. We have 3 applicants. We will conduct the interviews in alphabetical order. I do want to say none of the applicants have seen the questions that are going to be asked during the interviews. And so I do, just as a note of courtesy and respect to all the applicants so that everyone is getting a fair chance to hear the questions for the first time when they're asked during their interview, ask our members of the public who are watching on TV or watching here in person tonight not to text or tweet or send out the exact questions to the candidates who have left the room for the first interview or for the second interview if they're the third person, just so that we're giving everyone that equal opportunity to hear the questions for the first time during their interview. I believe our first interview is going to be Mr. Ricky Smith. And so, Mr. Ray, I would ask that you have the other candidates move, and then we're going to also move the podium, so that we have a place to have them sit. Do you need 5 minutes? Okay, we will take a 5-minute recess, which would have us reconvening at 7:01. I don't know. Did you need us? Okay, I think some of our technical issues have been fixed. So we will go ahead and get restarted. And as Mr. Perlman slowly makes his way here. Our first interview this evening, it's been a long day, is Mr. Ricky Smith. So if you'd like to come up and take a seat. All right, welcome. Just to give you a little introduction format of how things will work, we will go around, each board member will ask you a question. I think we've estimated about 5 minutes per question. No, you're shaking your head. We have a total of 20 minutes for the interview, which works out to 4-ish minutes per question on average. And then at the and then Mr. Snow will close and give you our next steps. All right, so first up is Dr. Holman.
Good evening, Mr. Smith. How do the roles and responsibilities of a board member How do the roles and responsibilities of a board member differ from those of the superintendent?
Well, the role of the board members is basically to guide our superintendent to make sure that he or she can be successful. It's identifying the policy that's going to drive our district in the direction that we want it to go, and then working together and collaboratively as a team to make the best decision for all 52,000 students that we serve.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Smith. Good to see you. I have two questions tonight. My first one is, what is your stance on tax credit scholarships, vouchers, and charter schools in all their forms?
I'm pro OPS, period, point blank. Any money that can come into our school system, into our district to help fund the goals that we have for our students, that's where it needs to go. We have been able to show that we have measurables, we have impact, we are driving our students in the right direction, and this is where we can continue to be successful by keeping the funding where it needs to be at. We do have a great community base who provides a lot of support, and those things are great, but when we can count on our own constituents to put in and put a little skin in the game and show that we believe in our kids and we believe in our district, it makes all the difference.
Okay, my other question is, have you had any discussions with any current board member here about the officer election vote tonight?
No, I have not.
Okay, I guess I'm next. Good evening, Mr. Smith. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you throwing your hat in. I've been where you are, so I know.
Right.
My question tonight, I have one. Do you see yourself as a representative of the community or as a representative for the school system?
I see myself as both. Moms wear many different roles. There are career women who run their own businesses. It's never just one or the other. I see myself as both. Right now, I feel like I'm an advocate for youth. I'm an advocate for students. I'm an advocate for teachers. I'm an advocate for administrators because I'm not sitting on the board at this current time. But as a board member, I realize what my role is and how to create that separation and be able to work together again with you guys as a team to make those decisions that we need to make in order to push our district forward. And so being able to balance multiple hats is one of the things that I've been able to do throughout my entire career. And it's all about success and not being so one-minded or have a tunnel vision where I can't focus on or work on several different things at one time and be successful and drive success for other people as well. Yes.
I'm next. What is the most significant strength you bring to the Omaha Public Schools Board of Education and why?
Before tonight, I didn't know. I thought I was going to be an educated, college admissions rep, but the people who stood up and spoke on my behalf said I'm a coach. And being able to coach and mentor and be impactful in the lives of students, I think that weighs a lot more heavier when you look at that scale. Recently, I started kind of keeping a journal, and there's one thing that I realized that I really, really love, and it's being in a grocery store and hearing the words, "Hey, coach." That means I had an impact on a kid if he was 8 or 18. And so being a coach, you have to be a part of a team. You have to know what the culture is like. Someone spoke earlier and said that we coached at Northwest together. The history of Northwest football hasn't been that of Omaha North. but I took on that challenge anyway. And we changed the culture there. We knew when we took the field, we're not losers. We can win the same way everybody else can win if you put in the hard work and the dedication and the practice, and we depend on each other. And those kids were successful. When nobody else believed in them, we were able to do that. That same person talked about a game at Creighton Prep. I thought he was going to mention when we were playing that game, they had 100 players. We probably had 20. The score was 14-0 at halftime. And usually when kids get down, they give up. But when you have the right motivator, the right person in your corner, somebody who's been in the trenches with you, and somebody who believes in you when you don't believe in yourself, you can make things happen. And we were able to come out of that game with the win on their home territory. And so it was good to end that season that way, because a lot of those kids will never play football again. They never play football again. But that wasn't my focus. It was to get them across the stage and to see them at a grocery store, to see them at a career place or working as firefighters, and they say, "Hey, coach." They still remember me, and that's the impact that I want to bring to the board, is being that teammate, being that team member, being able to drive us in the direction that we want to go, and making sure that we're making right decisions, and I can support what we're trying to do as a district. It's not, this is the Ricky Smith show. That's not what I meant to happen, but just want to be a teammate and be able to move forward and make sure that our kids get the best education possible.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to ask the next question. What are your thoughts on the current budget and financial situation of the district?
It's not surprising. It happens throughout the entire nation. We have wins and we have shortfalls, being that we were able to get a bond issue across and really tackle some of the big issues that we needed to by creating or, doing the renovations, improving our schools, getting up-to-date equipment, providing that technology that's necessary, creating safe environments for our kids to learn, and providing our teachers and educators with the resources needed to meet those expectations that are in the strategic plan. You guys made the right decision. And as the next bond issue comes, it's going to be another right decision that we make, because it's about our kids. And with the team that you guys have assembled here, without anyone in that seat, I know that you guys have made the right decision, and we'll come up with something that's going to get us out of that loophole or out of that negative where we have to worry about making cuts and those kind of things. With the teachers behind us and with us behind the teachers, and outlining what we want for our next leader, there's the sky is the limit. Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I have the last question. Is there something else you would want us to know that you have not already had the opportunity to share?
That I think it's important that we continue to work together as a team and work collaboratively. It's important that we make sure that we realize what's important to the students and to the educators and how we can become better. I spoke with an educator who was on the West Coast, and she talked with me about transformation and creating a climate of transformation. And that looks like students who are excited to come to school, excited to walk in the building, that OPS pride that we already have. When we start to create that climate of transformation, all of our students can succeed. All of our students can be successful. We also talked about coaching. What does that look like for our district? And she said, you guys are already on pace. You guys are doing exactly what you need to do. We already have best practices. Continue along that line because it works. And I believe it. I asked her about, well, what is it that I can do as a board member? And she said, continue what you're doing and work as a team. That's it. And so when it comes to myself and looking at making decisions and being a part of a team and what is it that I bring to the table, I believe that I bring that critical thinking component, that ability to analyze and put things into perspective. I have an extensive career resume with program implementation. And I know that's not what the board does, but to have somebody who has that experience would only be a plus. I have an extensive background with working with communities and collaborating. I have a phenomenal network that we will be able to access and utilize to help do some of the work that we need. One thing that I've noticed just tonight, we really need African American males to be present. And all of the speakers tonight, except for one, were African American men. Positive things that we can get to the table with the right leadership. Currently, I'm the chair of the African American Achievement Council, and I've been working diligently with offices and departments here to make sure that we can continue that success. We're going to be looking at trying to get a bond. I bring something that none of the other potential members have, and that's I've already had 4,000 families say this is the person that we want. So when you look at, we need some votes, we need something to go through. Ricky, what can you do? It's not fighting against what we have going on. It's making sure that we can go to the next level. And I know that we've taken a hit. We've had a black eye, and it's the board doesn't work together, and I want to eliminate that. These are the things that we want for our kids. And every single person in the seats that are in front of me, you're working hard for kids, and I appreciate your dedication. There's passion that you have that nobody knows because it's behind closed doors when those important decisions are made. It's those late nights. It's those people who are willing to give up their birthday to say, I want a seat where I'm volunteering. You don't have to pay me a dime. And I'm going to be here every single day to support whatever decision you make and whoever is in the seat for the next couple of years. A compassionate, dedicated partner, friend, teammate, and someone who is about working hard to make sure our kids can be successful. That's who I am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, happy birthday, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. What I'm going to do is just give you next steps.
Okay.
We're going to finish the interviews of the other two candidates, and then after that, everyone will be brought back into the room, and the board will deliberate and vote for the next board member that will fill Sub-District 1 seat. So again, thank you so much. It's always an honor to have people apply and volunteer for a position like this, and your work is known. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
How's it going, everyone?
All right.
You put the cameras on my good side. I appreciate that.
No problem. Our next interview this evening is Justin Solomon. Thank you for applying and thank you for being here tonight. To give you an idea of how things will work, we have allotted about 20 minutes for each interview. We'll go around and each board member will ask you a question, and then Mr. Snow will wrap things up and give you next steps. So first off is Dr. Holman.
Good evening, Mr. Solomon. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. How do the roles and responsibilities of a board member differ from those of the superintendent?
So they're foundationally different, in my opinion. The board is here to select, supervise, and evaluate the superintendent's work. Our duty as a board and as board members, we have the ability to draft policy and pass it. And we need to make sure that policy positively affects every student and family within the Omaha Public Schools. And at that point, we need to level set, right? As a board, we set the level of expectation, and we go and need to empower the people that are working with the superintendent and give them the resources and the tools that they need to fulfill our vision. With that, it takes a great amount of trust. But fundamentally, the superintendent's role reports to us as a board. And so our chief responsibilities there are accountability of that position, as well as ensuring that they're checking all the boxes for us and taking the things that this board says and wants to have happen to the people of OPS.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Solomon. I have a couple questions for you tonight. The
Yeah.
first one is, what is your positions on tax credit scholarships, vouchers, and charter schools in all their forms?
So I think you'll be hard-pressed to find a bigger advocate for public education. I have yet to hear a single compelling argument to me that justifies those programs that you named. Public schools are asked to do more and more, and they've time and time risen to that challenge. They are the backbone of our democracy, and they are what truly makes this country great. Even while all those things are true, this banging drum of school choice continues to ring louder and louder. And what I hear a lot of those advocates say is that they want programs that already exist in our public schools, but just don't have the proper allocation of resources because of other budgetary constraints. Things like IB programs, extended school day, that innovation, those public-private partnerships, that stuff exists in public schools, but it may just not have the resources and buy-in. So, as I said, I've never heard a compelling argument. I do not believe in the siphoning off of resources to charters or vouchers or tax credit scholarships, and I would be hard-pressed to think that opinion would ever change.
Okay, my other question is whether or not you've had any discussions with anyone on this board about tonight's officers' election?
I have not.
Okay, thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Solomon. How are you?
Well, how are you?
Good, good. Thank you for applying, first of all.
Thank you.
Take a breath.
You're welcome.
Okay, my question tonight is, do you see yourself as a representative of the community or as a representative for the school system?
That's really tough because this position requires you to be both. My senior year of college, I was elected student body president and student regent for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. That was sort of my first foray into educational governance and what that looks like, and understanding the fact that you do have separate jobs. You have the job to represent your constituency and your community. You also have the job to think about the entire enterprise, to think about every student within the district. And those are things you need to reconcile on specific issues. So I cannot give you a hard answer one way or another on what role or how I see myself, because it's going to change. I need to engage with people in the community and be the person who brings their voice forward, but ultimately all of you are tasked with making decisions that impact the entire district. And so I see myself as both, and that may seem like a cop-out, but I think you all would attest that that truly is how you need to function to be an effective board member.
I have the next question. What is the most significant strength you bring to the Omaha Public Schools Board of Education, and why?
The most significant strength? Is that what you said? The way I look at the Board of Education right now, I see in the immediacy, particularly in January, you guys have a lot of stuff. You guys have a big job in front of you. Superintendent search, $15.8 million that you need to find for the OSER's contribution. You have the bond issue, finalizing that, taking that to voters, right, and getting that ready to go to the vote. And you also have the legislative session. I bring unique qualities that can do some heavy lifting on all of those before stepping foot into this room. For example, as far as bond issues, as student body president and student regent, we passed a significant student bond issue with 72% of student vote. So I know how to go out and gain support and to dig into details and gain traction on big ideas. As far as the $15.8 million, I work for a Medicaid agency that had service fee revenues cut 3.5%. I'm in a CFO style role there, and so I had from May to July 1st to figure out how to deal with 3.5% less on service revenue that comes from the state of Nebraska and not impact the quality of the programs, not impact the employees of our company, and still maintain all the things that people expected. And that's a really tough job and something that I can bring to the board on one of your immediate needs. In regards to the superintendent search, I've served on executive level academia searches in the past. I served on the search for the Senior Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln as the student representative. And so, I know what it takes, again, to work with different demographics, to work with people on the board who may have competing interests, to build consensus on a decision, to sell it to the public, and to gain the feedback from the public on what they're looking for that position. So, and additionally, I mentioned the legislature. I've developed really good working relationships with a lot of folks in the legislature through various activities. So those are strengths that I think when you guys are looking 30 days from now, the things you're going to be forced to tackle, that I can come in and sort of take that steep learning curve and make it just a little bit more smooth. Additionally, I know that you're not just appointing for 30 days, right? You're appointing for the remainder of the term, and there's a lot of work. And I believe that my skill set that I bring to the table through those things and through the teams and the complex organizations that I've worked in the past will be a huge benefit to the Board of Education.
Good evening. What are your thoughts on the current budget and financial situation of the district?
Yeah, so some of that's out of your hands, frankly. Like I said just previously, I work in an industry that's state funded. I know you guys have several funding sources, but still sort of same animal, taxpayer dollars, right? That wins the day. You guys, I really applaud you on the formation of budget teams. I think if we're looking at educational funding in the big picture and where the state of Nebraska is financially, I don't think it's prudent to say that K-12 education will be spared forever from the budget reductions that look like they're going to persist into the future. And the foundation that you've laid in these budget teams will be able to do the yeoman's work moving forward if they can identify more than the $15.8 million that they're tasked to find. Because there's I think a legitimate threat that you're going to be asked to find more before your budgets are going to expand. The scope of public schools has changed dramatically, and meanwhile, the funding hasn't really followed. And so teachers and administrators and school districts are constantly asked to do more with less. If it were up to me, our schools would be incredibly expensive and free for everybody, but like our national defense, but that's, unfortunately, I'm not in that role. So I think, like I said, I think we need to start planning with the expectation that funding, that K-12 is not going to be spared into perpetuity. And I know that I've played that role for an organization of 600 employees and had to be the person making those calls and working with the team to make those decisions to make sure that services that people rely on aren't impacted and our employees aren't impacted.
Good evening. I have the last question for you.
Oh boy.
All right. Is there something else that you would like us to know about you that you have not already had the opportunity to share?
Well, I had a formal statement ready to go, and I was going to drop in a joke about my mom to sort of break the ice, so I'm really disappointed I didn't get to do that. But she's watching, so hi, Mom. No, so I actually didn't think I'd be here today. This all sort of started with a conversation with a mentor of mine, a guy who's here named Bob Whitehouse. And we got to talking about the district, and I started talking with sort of other people. And it became clear to me that I can offer something that I think the board really needs. Before I go into sort of before I think about seeking any position like this, something that's important and critical to a lot of people, I run myself through a series of questions, and if I can't answer in the affirmative to all of them, I don't pursue it. The first question is, can I bring something unique to this position? And I think I can, and hopefully I showed you guys exactly what that is, or my application did. The second is, do I think I'm the best person for the job? If I don't think I'm the best person for the job, I'm not going to apply. And it's the same reason why I didn't run in 2016. I thought we had the right person for the school district. And the last thing is, do I know that I'll wake up every day wanting to outwork anybody else to serve in this role and to impact the constituency in which I'm looking to serve? And I was able to answer all those questions. I know the two other gentlemen who applied are going to work hard, and I know that I need to bring just as much, if not more, to the table. And so that's sort of my philosophy in this decision. I know you guys have a tough one. And before I guess I close, I want to thank you guys for the work you do. I think more often than not, you don't get the thanks you deserve. And so thank you on behalf of an OPS product. I appreciate the time, and if that's the last question, I will thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. And I think Mr. Snow has a wrap
Yes,
up here.
yes. One quick second.
Trying to get out of here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Solomon,
bet.
for applying. I'm going to give you next steps, and then we'll go from there. All right, so we'll invite in the third candidate, interview them, and then invite all three of you guys in here. The entire board will deliberate, and we'll vote for the replacement of Subdistrict 1. Again, I thank you so much for applying, and it's no easy task sitting on that side of the table in front of a lot of beautiful people here, but thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Our final interview tonight is Pastor Michael Williams. Thank you for applying and for being here tonight. To give you an idea of how things will work, we've allotted about 20 minutes per interview. We will go around and each board member will ask you a question, and then Mr. Snow will give you our next steps. So first up is Dr. Holman.
Good evening, Pastor Williams.
Good evening.
How do the roles and responsibilities of a board member differ from those of the superintendent?
Well, I believe the board member is giving oversight and guidance to the superintendent. The superintendent is running the district day-to-day and giving oversight to the administration and the schools.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Williams. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I have two questions tonight. The first is, can you share with the board your positions on tax credit scholarships, vouchers, and charter schools in all their different forms?
Yes, I do not support them. I support public schools. I believe the funding that is taken away from public school going to charters and so forth is detrimental, and have some experience with that, as I have members of my family who are in public schools in New Mexico, and they are struggling in Albuquerque because of that. So.
Okay. My second question, have you had any discussions with any sitting board member here about tonight's officer elections?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I'm next, Pastor Williams. Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for applying. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
My question this evening for you is, do you see yourself as a representative of the community or as a representative for the school system?
Well, currently I'm a representative for the community, but should I be selected, I would certainly be a representative of the school system. I think it's important for board members to collaborate and work together for the good of the school system.
I have your next question. What is the most significant strength you bring to the Omaha Public Schools Board of Education, and why?
First of all, a knowledge of the district. I've been involved in one way or another over the last 6 years, and have been present in the last 3 superintendent search processes. So knowledge of the district, passion for kids. I've been in classrooms in a number of schools in the district, and I love kids, and I want to see them succeed.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've got the next question. What are your thoughts on the current budget and financial situation of the district?
I hope the state will fully fund TIOSA. I know that there are some budget potential cuts coming from the state, but I believe we have to work to prioritize clearly what it is we want to do in the district. But I also think we need to work with organizations like Stand for Public Schools to encourage our state legislators to do the very best they can for K through 12 education.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I have the last question, and then Mr. Snow is going to wrap up. Is there something else that you would like us to know that you have not already had the opportunity to share with us?
Well, I would like you to know that I had the chance to speak for public schools today in Lincoln. I think it's a privilege to be able to be here, to have the opportunity to join you all in this endeavor of educating our kids. I have served on a number of committees and with OPS, and I'm just looking forward to doing a job. I'm willing to work hard and to reach out to the schools especially in Subdistrict 1. I know 4 of them are REACH schools, and we need to work to get their performance up.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Pastor Williams, thank you so much for applying for this position. I'm going to give you next steps. We're going to invite the other 2 applicants in here as well, and the board will deliberate over the finalist, and we will vote for the replacement for Subdistrict 1. Thank you again for applying, and we greatly appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, while Ms. Cherry is bringing the other candidates back in, I would encourage board members to kind of use this time to look over your notes, look over application material. We will do discussion before we do any type of motion, and I think we mentioned this when we were doing Mrs. Cassidy's appointment. I would really like to have input from each board member during that discussion before we recognize or take any type of motion, so that everyone speaks to how they're feeling, speaks to their thoughts. Mr. Snow.
Well, thank you, Madam President. I will go through on my list. We'll start with Mr. Smith. Are they all here? Okay. I think Mr. Smith is a true advocate in the community. Obviously, he ran for this seat before and earned votes, so he's no stranger to his community. He's always present, and I love one of his comments talking about being in the grocery store and always having students come up to him and call him coach. That's one of the things that just really having a strong mentor in our schools as well on the board is what we need. And we move to Mr. Solomon. One of the things I liked about Justin, if I may call you Justin, he's very knowledgeable. And one of the things just really talking about the advocacy work that he's done at UNL, and his current role is just phenomenal. And being able to build consensus, from the interview in his bio, it seems like he really knows how to build consensus and is a hard worker. To Pastor Williams, I've seen him in the schools, I've seen him in a lot of places, but one of the things I do know is it's really struck me that he mentioned tonight that he went down to Lincoln and testified on behalf of public schools. And more than anything that we need on the board is we need board members to have the courage to go down to Lincoln and speak for our students, our 52,000 students we have in the district. So again, I really love that. And another thing is just being someone of good character. So thank you.
Ms. Ryan?
First, I want to say thank you for everybody who submitted their applications, and I know that this can't be easy and a fun situation in front of all of us. As Mr. Snow mentioned, you all have great strengths, and I'm very impressed with a lot of what you guys bring to the table. But one thing that has impacted where I'm kind of sitting on my vote is the community support and input on this, and that all of the people that spoke today were in favor of Ricky. And I think in a time where we need community engagement and we need people who will speak about issues of equity, I know I've seen some of you here before to speak about those very topics. I think it's important that we listen to that, and I really want my fellow board members to consider that when appointing this next board member.
Mrs. Gadding.
I'll go next. Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for coming and for taking the time to fill out the application and for your resumes and for answering the questions very thoughtfully, because they're big issues in running a school district, and so I appreciate the time that you took to put into that. Starting with Mr. Smith, you clearly had a bunch of community support, and I think half the speakers were from my sub-district, so, or almost, so you clearly had support from different parts of town. I was impressed with the coaching that different people talked about and that you talked about, as well as just your representation within UNO and ability to work with college students who are coming from our high schools and getting ready to move on to their next spot in life and in a career, hopefully. And Mr. Solomon, I was very impressed with your resume and some of the leadership opportunities that you've had and been elected to by clearly your peers and those around you. Of course, OSERS is very dear to my heart, so I appreciated that you mentioned that. I've spent a lot of time on that, and that was good that you understood the issue there. And also just your comments related to K-12 budgets. We clearly must be prudent as we move forward and recognize what the state is faced with and what we will also be faced with as well. So I appreciated your thoughtful insight to those items, because I think that's important. And then Pastor Williams, as we know, you're always an advocate for the district, and we see you at many, whether it be school board meetings or community forums or on committees, and you're always a thoughtful spokesperson for not only your community but for the district as well. So I think that came through tonight and really appreciate that. So I appreciate what we've heard from each of you. It's clearly a tough decision before us, so thank you.
Mrs. Cassidy.
Thank you, Lacey. Well, first of all, I just want to thank all three of you gentlemen for having the courage to apply for this position. I know, of course, firsthand, I was in your seat not too long ago. Pretty nerve-wracking, so again, thank you. You're all very qualified. This is a very tough decision. I kind of know now what hopefully they felt last time when I was in this seat, right? But you all bring great different characteristics to the table that I think we need for our board. I'll start with Mr. Smith. You said some words that I really liked, and I kind of circled them in my notes. Advocate for teachers and students, teammate, a balance, working collaboratively. These are all things that I think we really, really need right now as a board. Teamwork is a huge issue. We need to keep continuing, and we plan on continuing as a team. And I think your coaching background, your current employment would definitely show at the board table. Mr. Solomon, you have a lot of different skills that I really liked. Given the fact that we do have quite a lot of budget cuts coming in our future, inevitably, I like your background, the financial background that you bring. I, like Mrs. Gadding, like some of the comments that you made about the budget with the K through 12. I think you would bring a lot of insight in that area that we're somewhat lacking on the board right now. So I appreciate that. And then, of course, Mr. Williams, as Mrs. Gadding also said, we are all very aware of your community involvement. You're a true advocate for OPS and for just students in general. I do like some of the things that you said, particularly the oversight of the superintendent and the willingness to work with the superintendent. That's, of course, going to be very critical coming up as we are going to welcome a new superintendent into our district. We're going to need to show that support, and we're going to need board members that show that support as well and welcome that person into that role. So appreciate that. Thanks.
Dr. Holman.
First of all, thank you all for applying for this position and having the courage to stand up in front of everybody and on TV to interview in front of everybody tonight. I will start with Mr. Smith. Some things jumped out at me immediately regarding your interview. You mentioned several times about being a teammate, working collaboratively, and being an advocate for children. And this is something that we definitely need as a board member, someone that is going to be an advocate for our children. The fact that you're heavily involved with the community and well respected by the community says a lot about you as a person and your commitment to Omaha Public Schools and the students in which we educate. I also have down here that your commitment is also displayed through your leadership in not only being a coach, but also being the chair of the African American Achievement Council, which says a lot. And then you also mentioned something important that jumped out to me as well, and Mrs. Cassidy already mentioned this, your alignment with regard to the teachers. The fact that you actually mentioned our teachers says a lot about you as well. It seems like you have the compassion for our students and the compassion in wanting to do this job. So thank you very much. Next to Mr. Solomon. You are definitely very knowledgeable of the policy side, and that's important for a board member. I like that you mentioned and you have knowledge of the financial impacts, the constraints, and how they impede our district and our students. Your leadership roles in other organizations also demonstrate your passion for wanting to have a positive impact on our students and on our board and in our district, and making a difference for everybody. It's obvious also that you have the passion in wanting to do this job, and I like that you mentioned that you make sure to ask yourself those 3 questions and whether or not you would be a good fit for the job. So thank you for sharing that information with us. And then finally, Pastor Williams. It's always been obvious that you are a true advocate for the students of the Omaha Public Schools. You are very attentive to the needs of our district and to the needs of our students. You are in attendance at every single one of our board meetings, school board meetings on Monday nights, and have participated in several committees with the board. So thank you for your service with that, with the district. You're definitely a supporter of public education, and your strong support has been demonstrated through your interaction within many of our buildings, working with our teachers, working with our students, and in our classrooms. Your knowledge of TIOSA, thank you for mentioning that, as well as shedding some light on your knowledge of our REACH schools and how important it is to continuously work with our REACH schools in increasing student achievement in that regard. And then I also know that you are very well committed to our community as well, and just appreciate you applying for a position. So thank you.
Mr. Perlman?
I think most of what's already been said would pretty much cover all the things that I would have to say. I think each one of you would bring something unique to this board. I appreciate you stepping up and offering to serve. And again, it's not easy. I'm not sure which is more difficult. I've talked about this, I think, with Ms. Holman and Ms. Cassidy. I'm not sure which process is more demanding, but I appreciate your willingness to serve and everything that you've done so far. So thank you.
Scanlon.
Well, I would, again, echo the thanks for you guys putting yourself out there and interviewing for the open seat, and with the superintendent search, the bond, budget cuts, all that other, I'd have to question all your sanities. But it's going to be a tough one, but hopefully we can, determine who will help us through these hard times. And I will say, I'm not going to differentiate between the different notes that I made, because I made a lot of the same notes for everybody. I thought that you guys all brought great points, very similar points as far as what the responsibility of a board member is, what the responsibility of a superintendent is. Appreciate being able to differentiate that, because all too often you'll get pressures from the community that says, hey, you've got to solve the problem of my child, and that's not our job. Our job is to stay at the policy level and to pass along concerns to the administration, and it's their job to solve or help those problems. And I also, with the vouchers and charters, I appreciated all your answers. I think that that's very important as far as keeping it within OPS. I think a lot of us have very strong ties to OPS, and we understand the benefits that OPS has helped either us or family members or people that we know in this community, and it's a very strong school district. And charters and vouchers would detract from that. I think everything that you guys talked about, being collaborative, bringing, knowledge of the budget cuts with the state funding that we have, prioritizing, coaching, the importance of our teachers, everything that was stated by all three of you is very important, and I think it's going to be a very difficult decision, which, again, I think is great for this board to have that tough choice. You guys all brought very strong thoughts to the table, and I wish you all best luck.
All right. I also want to, not to sound like a broken record, but to thank all three of our applicants. And it's interesting, it's one of the few times we can say you guys and actually be correct. I think you all have very distinct strengths that you could bring to our board. Mr. Smith, you obviously have involvement in the community and experience working and volunteering in the schools and working with students and teachers. Mr. Solomon, you have more of that other side of experience that our board does need as well, the policy side, the budget side, the legislative side of things. And then Pastor Williams, I think we all know your involvement with CBOC and strategic planning and other issues of the bond issue over the last few years that we've been aboard. So it is a very difficult decision that we have to make. But I think it's a positive that that's a hard decision, though, because it means we have passionate members of our community who are involved and skilled that want to be involved in this district to make sure we have continued success going forward. Mr. Snow?
You kept looking at me as if I needed to do something. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I've looked at the resumes, and this is probably one of my most difficult decisions I've ever had to make on the board, because to be honest with you, I think you guys are amazing men, and I think more of our boys, especially our boys of color, need more good men to look up to. With saying that, I would like to nominate Pastor Thomas Michael Williams for Subdistrict 1, or make a motion.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Snow and a second by Luann. Is there additional discussion on that motion? Do you want to speak to your motion at all?
So, And the reason for my motion is I really do believe our board, January, February, this entire spring semester is going to be very critical for OPS. We need to make sure whoever we select is someone that already understands everything that we're going through, everything that we have set up, and can hit the ground running effectively in 3 days, I think, is our first kind of get-together, especially this weekend. So one of the things that we really need to do is make sure whoever we select is someone that already understands a lot of things that we already have going in motion, and understands where the board's going, especially when sitting on superintendent searches as well as the CBOC. So that is the reason for my recommendation. And to be honest with you, anyone that is willing to sit through an entire board meeting, I respect that. So thank you.
Mr. Scanlon.
I guess I would just like to say that I appreciate everything you've done for OPS and representing the community. We have never always seen eye to eye. We have our disagreements, but I feel that we're respectful in our disagreements, and we're open to listening to one another. And I think that the fact that you have served on CBOC, steering committees, a number of other, I guess not official OPS things, to where it's at the school level, to where you're doing that. I appreciate everything you've done for the community and for OPS, and I think that that's important. I mean, getting one of the most important things that I've learned since sitting on this board is that you can't sit up here at the board and create policy and expect it to solve problems. You have to have folks that are on the ground level that are willing to get into the schools and willing to not only help the children but help the families of those children that make a big difference. So I just appreciate everything you've done, and regardless of the outcome, I would hope that you would continue to advocate for our students and continue to support OPS.
Mr. Perlman.
Pastor Williams, we've only met probably a year ago. We've had some very good conversations. Everything that we've spoken about, you've been very insightful about and very honest and direct, so I'm going to be very honest and direct. Each one of us today have heard from constituents. Each one of us who's sitting here has read emails that have come from us, or has come to us from constituents, pointing us to a September 8, 2016 Omaha World Herald article in which you stood before this board and told the board, please do not create a policy that legitimizes, normalizes, and affirms the LGBT and transgender lifestyles. Considering I ran in part to put forth a policy that affirms every student in this district, specifically those communities, that's troubling to me, and that I have a lot of respect for you. Everything that we've discussed, you've had great insight, but that is a non-starter for me, and I just need to say that publicly.
Mrs. Gadding.
I just want to echo some of the things that Mr. Scanlon said. You and I have had a lot of conversations as well over the years, and we don't always agree, and nor would I want to always put someone on the board who agreed with every single thing that I thought or didn't think. Because I know there will be differences, and there are differences for all of us. It's how we handle those differences and how we manage those in a professional way, trying to make the best decisions for kids. And so I seconded the motion because I wanted conversation out on the table, but I also believe that you have been very respectful every time, and you've been very professional when we haven't agreed, and you've also put a tremendous amount of time into showing up at lots of different activities. I've seen you there, and sometimes you're there, and there may only be one or two other board members there. So I've appreciated that from you. So from that standpoint, I know you would be there. You would be a professional, and while we may not always agree on every single little thing, I think we would move forward as a district.
I just do want to say on my own behalf, I did also receive some emails and things addressing the issue that Mr. Perlman brought up. But my hope would be that if this motion does pass, that when we do go into situations like that, because we have, I think, as a board, we've tackled some major issues where not everyone on our board agreed. And we had several times where people may have put their personal beliefs and feelings to the side for what was best for students and what was being presented to us. And in fact, I think the person whose seat we're filling said that during the human growth and development conversation, that she knew she may not 100% agree with everything, but that was what was best for our district and for our students. And I think there's been other times where we've mentioned that on several issues. So that would be my hope, is that you would be open and willing to hear. I know you're open and willing to hearing lots of diverse viewpoints, and that's from having conversations with you on a lot of different issues. Any other board discussion? If not, we have a motion by Mr. Snow with a second by Mrs. Gotting to appoint Thomas Michael Williams to serve the remainder of the term for Subdistrict 1 and be sworn in at tonight's meeting. Roll call, please, Mr. Ray.
Cassidy,
No.
Gadding,
Aye.
Hallman,
No.
America,
No.
Perlman,
No.
Ryan,
No.
Scanlon,
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
3 aye, 5 no.
Okay, motion fails. Are there any other nominations? Ms. Ryan, you did raise your hand first, technically, Mr. Snow.
I would like to nominate Ricky Smith for Subdistrict 1.
Second.
I think I heard Ms. Ryan's voice first, but okay, we will say motion by Mr. Snow and second by Dr. Holman. Is there any discussion on the motion? Ms. Ryan?
Ricky did run for the spot originally, and I know this is something that he's had his heart and mind set on for a while. And once again, pointing back to the community at large, whether it's in the sub-district or outside of his sub-district, I think it's important that people did show up for him and voice their opinions. And quite frankly, we need that community. We need people of color to be coming to our meetings and to be engaging. We need to show that we're listening, and that's something that we're lacking, and I want to make a very conscious effort of doing better.
Any other board discussion? Going once? Going twice? All right. We have a motion by Mr. Snow with a second by Dr. Holman to appoint Ricky Smith to serve the remainder of the term for Subdistrict 1. Roll call, please, Mr. Ray.
Gadding,
No.
Hallman,
Aye.
America,
Aye.
Perlman,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Scanlon,
No.
Snow,
Aye.
Cassidy.
Aye.
6 aye, 2 no.
Right, motion passes. Congratulations to Mr. Ricky Smith, who is our new board member for Sub-District 1. And I've had a request for us to take a 5-minute recess. I do also, right before we do that, want to again thank our other applicants and encourage you to get involved and stay involved in the school district. Because there are lots of opportunities, whether that be through the budget response team, whether that be through the upcoming committee for upcoming bonds, through the African American and Latino Achievement Councils, or through a variety of the groups that we have in the district. We will take a brief 5-minute recess and reconvene at 8:08. All right, it is 8:09. So if I can get board members back at the table, we will have Mr. Smith do his oath of office, which is important because we want to make sure our Sub-District 1 representative is seated so that we can keep moving forward with the superintendent search process, which really speeds up in the next few days and weeks here. And if you're wondering and would like an update, there are currently 14 minutes left in the second quarter, and the score is Georgia 3, Alabama 0, because I had a couple of people ask.
You didn't want to know.
Sorry. Spoilers. We have 5 people by the table, so Mr. Ray, will you be administering the oath information?
Mr. Smith has the oath in front of him. We talked a little bit about that he was going to read it, and we should be ready to go. I think he's all right sitting. He's been through a lot. It's his birthday.
It's okay sitting. I think we had when we swore people in January, we had them sitting down, so.
Go. Okay. Begin. I, Ricky Smith, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without mental reservation or for the purpose of evasion, and that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of the office of a member of the Board of Education according to law and to the best of my ability. I do further swear that I do not advocate, nor am I a member of a political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of this state by force or violence, and that during such time as I am in this position, I will not advocate nor become a member of any political party or organization that advocates for the overthrow of the government of the United States or of the state by force or violence, so help me God.
Happy birthday, Ricky.
All right, congratulations and welcome to the biggest adventure that you are undertaking. And we're glad to have you along for the journey. We do not have any information items or receipts of report for the evening, so I will recognize Mr. Snow for our closed session motion, and then we will do election of officers following a brief closed session.
Real fun. I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the protection of the public interest and for the prevention of needless injury to the reputation of individuals to discuss with the superintendent, secretary to the board, Connie Kanoki, and legal counsel. Negotiations, pending litigation, and legal advice.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Snow and a second by Dr. Holman to go into closed session. Roll call, please, Mr. Ray.
Holman,
Aye.
America,
Aye.
Perlman,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Scanlon,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Cassidy,
Aye.
Godding.
Aye.
9 aye.
Motion carried. Let me remind the board that the purpose for closed session is for the protection of the public interest and for the prevention of needless injury to the reputation of individuals to discuss with the superintendent, secretary to the board, Connie Kanoki, and legal counsel, negotiations, pending litigation, and legal advice. Let the record reflect that the board went into closed session at 8:13 p.m. All right, let the record reflect the board came out of closed session at 8:49 PM. We will move now to item N, which is election of officers. Per policy 8130, the OPS Board of Education shall first elect its president and then its vice president. Any member of the board may self-nominate or be nominated by another board member. Nominating speeches are not permitted. However, nominees shall have up to 5 minutes to speak following the close of nominations and prior to the distribution of ballots. Nominee speeches shall be in order of nomination. Election of officers of the Board of Education shall be kept by secret ballot, and election shall require a majority of all members of the board. Before we move into elections, I want to take a point of personal privilege and just thank you all for the unexpected adventure that the past year has been. I think we all know it was definitely not something I was planning on leading the board through, but I thank you all for working together and for staying true to the course and keeping focused on our mission, which is making sure that we are providing a high-quality education for every child in our district. So we will move on to officer elections, and I will open the floor first for nominations for board president. Mr. Snow. All right.
Okay, I'll nominate myself, Mark Snow, for board president.
Okay, we have one nomination for Mr. Snow. Are there any other nominations for board president? Mr. Froman.
I'd like to nominate myself.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mr. Perlman. Are there any additional nominations? I think my policy in any organization I've led has always been to say that 3 times. So are there any additional nominations? And last call, are there any additional nominations? Hearing none, we have 2 nominations. Per our policy, we will allow each nominee up to 5 minutes, and as I said, they are in the order of nomination. So first up is Mr. Snow, and Mr. Ray, I believe, will keep track of time for you.
Thank you, Madam President, and it was an honor to serve with you on the board as vice chair. Thank you, guys. I've been on the board for 4.5 years, and one of the things that I love is helping my community, helping the constituents that I serve every day. But I've grown since being on the board, and one of the things I've learned is that everyone at this table is a leader. You're a leader at your church, at your job, at home, to the constituents you serve, and what does that make the board president? The board president has to be a servant leader. The job of the board president is to serve the members of his or her board, to bring consensus together, to make sure that everything that we've laid forth, we can accomplish those goals, to work with you, to answer your questions, to work with the superintendent, and also not just be an advocate for the board, but be an advocate for the community. One of the things that's really interesting is that at the end of this month, which I'm so excited about, we will be selecting the next superintendent of Omaha Public Schools. And that, what you need is a servant leader to continue that process. We will also be talking about putting up a bond initiative, not just for South Omaha that has need, but also Northwest Omaha that has need as well. We would also be reevaluating our strategic plan, which needs to be reevaluated so we can meet the needs of the students in our district that we're still currently serving. So with that, I really do believe that it is my duty. I would be honored to serve for you guys and to be your board president. I never thought I would be here today at the age of 29 in this role. And it's not about me. It's not about you guys. It's about the kids that we serve. I'll give you a quick story. I had a kid, I used to work at the YMCA eons ago. And I had a kid, I left the Y and he did his own stuff, got in trouble, got locked up, and got into a mentor program with the 100, and they were doing their interview with them, and they said, who's the one person in your life that has been an advocate for you? And he said, Mark Snow. And I've continued to be his mentor, and when I went to his house, his entire family wanted me to mentor everybody, but the organization said I can only mentor one kid. So when I'm in the community, and I get this all the time, they're like, well, how can you lead the board and be a servant leader if you don't have kids in the district? I have kids in the district. They might not be biologically mine, but I do have kids in the district. So with that, thank you, and I'm humbled.
All right, next up, Mr. Perlman, you also have 5 minutes.
Thank you. This was a difficult decision for myself to decide to ask to be put in a position of leadership on this board, mainly because I consider Mr. Snow a friend, and a lot is said about this board and the people on this board by people who don't know the people on this board, or this board as a whole, or the interaction that we have while not sitting here on Monday nights. And we have made progress, but I think there's a lot more progress that can be made. And I think that progress can be made by just changing the dynamic a little bit of how this board operates and our interactions with each other and with the district administration, if you will. I don't think that we have reached the level of communication that we all know is needed on this board. There's still a lack of information sharing, week to week, meeting to meeting, where I think a lot of us are still asking questions without really knowing the information that we need to make the best educated decisions. And so that would be my goal over the course of the next year, is to work with all the board members to ask for their input in board development and agenda development to a larger degree than what we've seen over the last 12 months. Each one of us has a lot of experience that we bring to the table from our own personal and professional lives, whether we have children in the district or not, that can be very valuable to creating the agenda and the policies that move this district in the way that we want it to move. There are a lot of challenges, as we heard tonight, not only in January and February, but throughout all of 2018. And I think by better engagement of not just each other, but also the leaders in the classroom and in the administration, I think we can move in a forward, more positive direction, especially with the hiring of a new superintendent. It will be a new beginning and a new opportunity for all of us to have our voices heard, again, in the implementation of all the things that we want to do together as a board. So, thank you.
All right, Mr. Ray, if you would please distribute ballots. You'll notice there is a line for each board member on the ballot, so please mark your selection, and then Mr. Ray will pick them up.
Snow. 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 Scanlon. Blank. Pearlman. Snow. 6 Snow, 1 Pearlman, 1 Scanlon, 1 Blank.
Congratulations to our new board president, Mr. Mark Snow. And now we need to switch places because generally the newly elected board president takes over running the meeting and runs the vice president elections.
Do you need it? Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Ray.
Okay. Up next, we'll be having our vote for the selection for the vice president of the school board. I would take any nominations.
Pearlman.
Ricky?
I'd like to nominate Pearlman.
Yes. There's a, for Ricky Smith, any other, not, for Ben Pearlman, sorry. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Lacey Merica.
There's a nomination for Lacey Merica by Miss Amanda Ryan. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none? Mr. Ray?
Your speeches?
Oh, speeches, I apologize. It's a long night.
It's okay.
Mr. Pearlman?
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for the nomination. Again, I would just reiterate the goals that I would set forth, working with Mr. Snow over the next 12 months. I think it'd be a great partnership to communicate as best we could with each board member and the administration to include everyone as part of the decision-making process in a more inclusive manner. So, thank you.
Ms. Merica?
Thank you, President Snow. I am interested in serving as our board vice president. It's something that Mr. Snow asked me to consider doing when he shared with me that he was going to be running for president. And the reason I said that I would consider that is because I do think we make a good